Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Kyle. I talk about cameras, photography, and all that good stuff. Today we're going to talk about two different lenses, both macro lenses, the 7Artisans 60mm f2.8 and the Pergear 60mm f2.8. One has a little bit better magnification than the other. One's a different price than the other. Let's get into it. All right, so I'm gonna use my handy dandy phone for the specs and everything. Let's go through it real quick. So 7Artisans lens is actually a lot cheaper at $169. We'll call it $170. Pergear is $229. We'll call it $230. Next, this is the size and weight, which there is a huge difference. The 7Artisans is 399 grams or 14 ounces, and it's a lot smaller. The Pergear is 600 grams or 21 ounces. They're both made of all metal. The main reason though, the difference between the size and the weight is the Pergear has a lot more going on inside because it has a magnification of 2:1 versus the 7Artisan maxes out at 1:1. I'm going to show you with examples, kind of a comparison between 1:1 and then actually going in to 2:1.
All right, so macro comparison. And yes, the audio is better here because I'm using my external mic, which died during the video. Anyway, wanted to show you guys distance markers and the magnification kind of in the bottom half of the screen, and it'll progress each shot. If you see a question mark, it's because the lens didn't have a distance marker there, but it's probably close to what the other lens has. So as you can see, the magnification just gets crazy once you get to the Pergear's maximum, but super interesting stuff. No extension tubes, nothing attached to the lenses on the outside. This is all done inside of both of these lenses, and it's really impressive what both of them can do. And then you have obviously the Pergear with that 2x magnification, and it gets pretty wild.
Next is their aperture range. They both have a maximum aperture of f2.8. The 7Artisans goes down to f22 if you want to do that, and the Pergear goes down to f16 respectively. Minimum focusing distance, so how close you can get to a subject and get it in focus with the lens. 7Artisans 17.5 centimeters, and then the Pergear is actually 19.1 centimeters, but it makes up for it with that 2 magnification. And then very quickly, some of my subjective opinions on both of these lenses. I really like the way the 7Artisans lens is built. I like its styling. It has a really cool finish on the side where it mounts to your camera. And it's very reminiscent, or pretty much the same style as the 35mm f0.95 that 7Artisans made. And I really like this kind of style that they're going with these lenses. It feels premium, feels nice. I like the details, the number details, some in red, some in white. Very nice touches. The Pergear lens is definitely super sturdy. It's bulky, but it is very well made. When I think of Pergear, I think of great value in your money and what you get and what you pay for. But I also think of quality and very sturdy and well-built lenses. They're usually all metal, and they can withstand getting beat up a little bit. Let's talk next about the focus ring and the aperture ring of each lens because they are quite different. But before we do that, I need to thank today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators. You can learn new skills that you don't have, like calligraphy, cooking, or photography.
Ooh, self-burn. Those are rare.
Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads, there are chapter markers, and it's very helpful to actually learning a new skill. A lot of YouTubers themselves are making Skillshare classes. One of my favorites is MKBHD's kind of behind the scenes of how to make a video from start to finish. Super awesome class. The first 1,000 people to use the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. And that's pretty cool. So big thanks to Skillshare. Now back to the video. All right, so we're talking about the focus ring and the aperture ring for the Pergear lens first. It is quite chunky. I'll of a lens, but you know, we still love it. And the focus ring is on top and the aperture ring is on bottom. The focus ring is very smooth, to be honest with you, but it is also pretty tight. So it takes some effort to kind of move it from point A to point B. However, I think that can be a good thing with a macro lens because you are trying to dial in focus to the T. The aperture ring is even tighter somehow than the focus ring, which is good and bad because it's good that it won't move or it's likely not to move, but at the same time, it's really tight. Probably the tightest of any lens I've tested, and I don't understand why lens manufacturers don't make them clicked aperture rings, because then it wouldn't change on you and you wouldn't really have to worry about it, and then you wouldn't have to make it so tight. All right, now on to the 7Artisans, which is a lot smaller, probably a little bit easier to handle, but it does have a bad thing about its focus rings. So the aperture ring is on the top on this one, and the focus ring is on the bottom. So it's literally the opposite of the Pergear, which is funny. And the aperture ring is very, very loose. It is almost to the point where I wonder, why are they not putting clickable aperture rings on these macro lenses? It just would make all the sense in the world. Then I wouldn't have to worry about one that's too loose or one that's too tight, and it would just be better. But with that aside, the focusing ring of the 7Artisans, it's tighter, it's way tighter than the aperture ring, and I feel like it is just right for focusing, and I really like it. I mean, the build quality of the 7Artisans lens is really a thing of beauty. The Pergear's is nice, but I think the 7Artisans kind of outdoes it in this department. Check my notes here. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about real quick, and that is the front lens element. This is the Pergear. It looks like an anamorphic lens, but it is not. And if you can see here, as I focus with the lens, you can see the inner barrel move towards the outside of the lens. So the lens is actually extending inside and out, but it is all within this big encasing that is the entire lens body. So the 7Artisans, on the other hand, just has kind of a normal front lens element, and it doesn't have any kind of barrel extending or retracting or anything like that. So it has a much smaller body because of that. All right, so now let's get to photo examples. I got a bunch to show you guys. First, I wanted to show you guys kind of a bokeh test. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it seems like to me from the photos that I've taken that the 7Artisans produces a little more pleasing bokeh in my eyes. The lights in the photo are more rounded, just overall, in my opinion, more pleasing. Okay, I'm gonna throw example photos on the screen right now for the 7Artisans 60mm f2.8. All right, now I'm going to throw on screen example photos from the Pergear 60mm f2.8. So which lens should you pick up if you're thinking about a macro lens? Well, they both have the same maximum aperture and they're both the same focal length. So what are the main differences? It's really size and weight, the Pergear being heavier, and then also price, which it's more expensive, but it gives you that 2x magnification, which is super awesome when it obviously comes to macro photography. So you get that additional punch into diving in like Ant-Man levels of detail, but you have the size and the expense. You have the 7Artisans, which is lighter, smaller, and cheaper, but it doesn't have that 2x magnification. I do think the 7Artisans is a little bit sharper. I think the Pergear can get a little bit soft when it is in that 2x magnification, but really the possibilities kind of open up in your brain when you're getting that close to things, and it could be a lot of fun for you. So you got to weigh the pros and cons of each lens. Hopefully the photo examples helped you make a decision if you were deciding between these two. If you weren't, I hope you enjoyed the video regardless. That is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video, and as always, I will see you in the next episode later.